Hello book friends, I'm Allie, and today I'm going to be talking about the Newbery Award winning book for 2020, New Kid by Jerry Craft. I'm going to do a short review on this, and this is not going to have any spoilers, so you don't have to worry about me ruining the story for you. I just want to talk about some things that I feel like this book did really well and why it's deserving of the Newbery Medal. So to begin with, this is the very first book that is a graphic novel that has won the John Newbery Medal. And that, to me, is awesome that a graphic novel has finally joined the ranks of the Newbery Award winners. And this book has beautiful illustrations. It's very captivating. The story was very fun to follow. Mostly this follows character building, so you don't have a lot of plot, you don't have just like an overwhelming story to follow. You just have the story of this child named Jordan who's 12 years old and he wants to go to art school. And you start out the book with him talking to his parents about how he wants to go to art school. But his mom is adamant that she wants him to go to a private school so that he can have more connections in the world. She thinks that it would be better for him to be able to branch out and to meet more people. But this school is predominantly white, and he is very nervous going into school with all of these other like upper class children. He's afraid that they're going to basically make fun of him, or that he's not going to fit in, or that he's not going to find a group of people. And, you know, it's hard enough being the new kid, and then add on top of that, you know, he is not the majority in this school. He's part of the minority. And that's just a very difficult topic, especially with everything going on in the world right now. And Jerry Craft does such a good job of telling this story so that you understand how not only how bad the racial divide is, but also how children feel going into a new school, being the new kid, and being afraid that you're not going to fit in and make any friends. So the next topic that I would like to focus on is the diversity, because that is a really big part of this book. So in the very beginning, Jordan has a guide who comes, the family comes and picks him up to take him to school, and they have a son that's going to the school, and he's supposed to be Jordan's guide. And so Jordan actually does make friends. He's nervous at first because this kid doesn't seem like he's going to make friends with him. He falls asleep on the car ride to school, but then he very quickly does become his friend, and they actually hit it off and have a lot in common, and they want to play Xbox together. And this other family is a family that is very wealthy, and they are white, and it shows how he was very conscientious of the fact that they were different colors at first, and that he was afraid that he wasn't going to connect with this other family. And you see that in the end, it didn't matter to them or to his new friend. They end up really hitting it off, and then they really enjoy hanging out with one another, and that was really neat, and that was also really good for Jordan because it opened doors for him to make other friends. And then you also see, kind of in the beginning, how he's walking through the hallways, and this is just a funny little chapter picture. These little chapter pictures are usually kind of how he's feeling as you are going into the next chapter. But you see how he's walking through the hallways looking for other children of other races, and how he wants to find somebody else who looks like him. And he is almost hesitant to try to make friends with white kids because he's afraid that they're going to say things that are offensive or that are just going to alienate him. You can kind of see where he feels like he's being alienated, and it really does that topic tactfully. It covers the fact that he does actually see another young boy who, I think that he is actually in like the 7th or 8th grade, and the middle grade is mixed with the older grades. So there are a couple other kids in his class who are of different races, and he sees another black boy and he gets excited and he thinks that he's going to make friends with this kid. So one day after class he stops to talk to him, and he realizes in that moment that they have nothing in common. And so it's not just the fact that, you know, they're the same color, they don't have anything in common. And he portrays that in a way that shows them like on two separate planets, because they have no way of actually connecting. And so that's also a really cool aspect to show that it doesn't matter that, you know, they're the same race, they still don't have anything in common, and so they don't really become close friends in that way. When he had first seen him, he thought that they would. So it covers those topics in a way that is more broad than just the racial divide. It's also, you know, having a child of the same color close to him, and they still aren't seeing eye to eye. There's another kid that he wants to make friends with, and they decide one day that they're going to stay inside instead of go outside because it's cold. And then they are also both black, and the teacher basically calls them out for not going outside when it was one instance, and the teacher says that they weren't being sociable, that they were just talking to one another. And that's another instance of not being understood, because this teacher, who thinks that she's helping, who thinks that she has their best interests at heart, is actually causing more dissension, because she's calling them out for wanting to sit together because they didn't want to go outside because it was cold. And she makes it seem like it's about something more than that. And then you also see when Jordan is talking to another student, they're like, "Oh, you're really gonna like the math teacher." And he says, "Why is that?" And they're like, "Well, you'll see when you get to class." And when he gets to class, he sees that the math teacher is also black. And so that child had just associated immediately that just because the teacher was black, that they were going to hit it off naturally. And then later on, he's talking to that same teacher in the hallway, and that same teacher has issues where another teacher comes by and calls him by the wrong name. And he says, "Oh, well, it must be hard being new here." And the teacher says, "I've been here for such and such years." And then he walks away mumbling how people can't even remember his name. And so it covers it in a whole different way. There are so many different aspects to the issue of race, and I feel like he really did well to try to show us all the aspects of what people go through. And it's not even just with Jordan being black. There's also a child who is Mexican, and they're sitting together at a table, and some other kid walks up and says, "Oh, it's taco day. I bet your mom makes better tacos than the school does." And the kid sitting with him rolls his eyes like, "Yeah, I guess she does." And it just goes to show how people just aren't educating themselves on how to be tactful and how to talk to one another about just being human instead of adding race into the equation. And I think that this book covers that topic so well, and I'm so glad that this is available for children to read. Another great topic that it covers is friendship, and it covers it on a bunch of different levels. It covers it on the racial level. It covers it on just having things in common and being able to talk and being able to see how people become friends, how it's a slow build, and how sometimes even the most unlikely people can become friends and you don't even realize that it's happening. It just does. And so it also covers bullying. There is an aspect of bullying, and you see how the children are handling it and standing up for one another. And I just feel like there were so many things that this book did so well. And I think that if you are looking for a very rich story that just covers a lot of really deep topics, and it does them in a way that is accessible, it's not confusing, it's well balanced, and the story is captivating. It never really is boring at any point, it's never really slow at any point, it's just a nice story. And I've also heard recently that there is a sequel out now, so I think it's called Class Act, and I think it follows another boy that is friends with Jordan. So if you read this one and you decide that you enjoy it, then you could go check that one out too. One other thing that I noticed that it covers is issues at home. There are issues with Jordan's parents sometimes, and you see them trying not to fight in front of Jordan, and you see him having to cope with how his parents act sometimes. And sometimes as adults we don't think about how children have to cope with what their parents are doing. And then they sometimes get put on the back burner with their emotions. And this really brought it to the forefront for me, seeing that, the parents didn't get along sometimes. They handled it well, they spoke well, but it also still made Jordan feel really small because he had to watch his parents not get along, and he had to try to figure out how he fit into the equation, if that makes sense. And then you see his friend, whenever he gets invited to go stay the night, he says, "Don't judge me by my house, please." And you find out, well, this is from the very beginning, you find this out, so this is not a spoiler, but his dad is never home. He stays gone all the time on business trips and golf trips, and he just doesn't stay home with his family. And so you get to see a glimpse into their family life. And so you get to see all of these different people and the way that their lives connect and the way that they make relationships and friendships and just the way that children feel on a middle grade level. And it's just a really wonderful story. And if you have a middle grader who is interested in graphic novels, or if you have a middle grader who might be going through some issues trying to fit in, this is a really great story, and I highly, highly recommend that you check this one out. Alright guys, that is it for my very first review. I hope that it wasn't too rambly, and I hope that I covered enough topics for you guys to be able to get some information, and hopefully I was able to provide some insight into that book. If you would like to know more about it, please drop me a comment down below. And if you would like me to structure this differently, please let me know what you would like to hear about books, and I can try to adjust what I'm doing. This is my first time doing this, which I've already mentioned, but I would like to figure out what works best for me and try to come up with a way to talk about books the best way possible, I guess. So if you have any ideas, drop me a comment down below. And I am going to read the Newbery Award winner for 2019 this month, and I will be reviewing it and talking about it next month, so you can look forward to that. And if there is anything that you would like to know in the meantime, just drop me a comment. Until next time guys, I'll see you later.